Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pivoted Success Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Goldsmith, and I'm also joined by my co-host, Sean Cochran from TCC Canada. Today, we have a very special guest, Mr. Brad Campeau from Brew Donkey. Brad, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me to be on, Sean. Thanks, Jared, very much for hosting.
Well, thank you, Brad. We like to invite community and business leaders, and you're a fantastic opportunist to talk about how you pivoted during COVID. So, Brad, let's talk a little bit about your background. What are you? What's Brew Donkey all about? How did you start?
So, I have been, an entrepreneur since 26. Started a bakery business in a way that felt comfortable for me. I've always chosen businesses that make money but don't require me to lose my shirt in planning and execution and operational expenses. So that business was a bakery in a truck. So instead of having a monthly rent or a lease and building out the interior of somebody else's building, I built it inside a truck.
So you were probably one of the very first mobile businesses out there.
Yeah, first, we had actually modeled it after fry trucks, burger trucks that were all over the city at that time. And I had been walking around the neighborhood looking at them thinking, well, they're making food. All I want to do is make cookies. And they make French fries and burgers. Like, cookies aren't going to kill a person, but burgers could if they were cooked badly. So went ahead and talked to a couple of food truck owners and realized that there was nothing stopping me from doing it other than ambition and a bit of fear. So got past that, started the bakery truck, did a bunch of fun things with it, did farmers markets and did festivals, had the ability to pretty much operate year round with a heater, luckily, because we were baking the cookies in that truck. And that lasted until 2013. And at that point realized, although I loved baking, I was more of a business person than I was a baker, and closed the bakery and decided that I wanted to do something else with my time. I went to school for business at Niagara College, took a retail business management program, which was for me enough to essentially convince me that I could quit my job and start a business, which is really what you need.
How hard can it be to start a business, eh?
Well, how hard can it be? No business course is going to teach you what you need to know to run a business. It just teaches you enough to make you feel comfortable enough to quit your job and then fail forward, really. And then you eventually figure out that you should do your accounting properly and you should manage your time better. And these are all the things you don't get taught when you take a business course. They teach you plenty of things, but not that. So 2013 comes around and I've closed the bakery business and I need to do something else. And that was the time when inception of Brew Donkey happened. Yeah.
And so what is Brew Donkey?
So Brew Donkey, when we started, it was a little different than it is now. But right now it's currently a tour service, buses to local craft breweries. We're bringing people on entertaining, educational experiences that'll help them get help them better understand the craft beer industry in Ottawa. They're meant to be for locals and tourists alike, but we're pretty heavy on locals, both now and prior to the pandemic. We've always had a local contingent, which was very heavy, and it's obviously even heavier now because people are only traveling while local. Those trips are between 3 and 6 hours, depending on the duration of the trip and depending on the design. And
or any stragglers left over after a few drinks. You never know.
We really do our best not to forget anybody. It doesn't bode well for Google reviews and TripAdvisor reviews if you get left behind. So we
that's such an interesting idea, Brad. And you said you started it in 2013?
Yeah, 2013, I was on a trip to Victoria and Vancouver. I told and this was in May, and I told my girlfriend that I need to figure out what I want to do. And so I followed her to Vancouver and Victoria because she was going there for a conference. So she was working all day, and I was out at a conference exploring the craft beer scene because I'd recently started to enjoy the craft beer scene. And I walked to 9 different breweries in 2 days. And at each one, there was an experience of chatting with somebody and you know, asking them questions about their business. And I really really started to feel impassioned by what I was seeing on this walking experience that I was doing in Victoria and Vancouver. And anyway, the end result is when I got back, I started to mill in my head, like, is this something that people want to do? I can do it at home with a car, but there's no walking ability of breweries in Ottawa at that point, not at the time in 2013. So then the idea was start a business that'll help essentially enable craft beer lovers. So,
well, and you were right at the cusp of sort of that big boom, because I mean, now craft beer is something that everybody knows about. I mean, it's not a secret. Even beer drinkers and non-beer drinkers know what's going on. And in Ontario and everywhere, it's been really booming. And I noticed personally that in BC, it really sort of took off first. So it's interesting that you really got the sort of energy from what they were doing out there to be able to sort of bring it back here, right? So
yeah, the craft beer industry from 2012, 2013, when it had begun, was instantly on people's mind because we went from having 1 or 2 to having 8. And even in 2014, I look back at some articles and they say, you know, are we hitting peak? Are we hitting saturation? And this was in 2014 when we had 12, maybe 13. So at that point, we really had to kind of, you know, step up and converse with the media. And we were like, no, there's no problem with the saturation. If we look at breweries like bakeries, at a certain point in time, bakeries were in every neighborhood. That's where you got your bread because you believed in the baker. You shook his hand, there was still flour under his fingernails. But beer can be the same. So we don't need a brewery to supply to the province or the country if what they want to do is supply to the neighborhood. And there's a financial model for that.
So Brad, let's talk a bit about COVID now. We're going to ask you 2 questions. One, how you personally, if you'd like to talk about how you and your family were affected by COVID, and then how Brew Donkey was affected.
Perfect. Okay, well, personally, myself, I was, because of the financial prudence of myself, I paid myself in dividends prior to the pandemic, which allowed me to do certain things with my money in certain ways. And it's a completely legal accounting practice for paying yourself in dividends. Well, dividends are not considered a type of income that can be covered with wage subsidy. So personally, I was on CRB or CERB, depending on the timing, and the wage and salaries that I was paying myself were not, even though they were regular and even and not in batches, it was not valid coverage. So I've never had and never probably will get any wage subsidy. So on a personal level, I took part-time side hustles, and not the hustles I wanted to like continue or grow, but ones that I knew I could let go of. And I did that because I knew I had to reopen Brew Donkey. It was important for myself and everybody who's invested in us. And I say invested in us, there's no financial investors other than the people who bought gift cards. A gift card to us
is a lot about time
that?
management. You know, you said all these little side hustles and keeping in mind the big picture of trying to grow and expand Brew Donkey when you're able to.
Yeah, absolutely. And for us to be able to reopen, I knew that I couldn't be mentally preoccupied. For us to continue, I needed to start working somewhere that wouldn't need me if I left to reopen Brew Donkey. And the way the pandemic was looking, we were always waiting in increments of 2 months. You know, we're like, okay, 2 months from now I should be able to open, and maybe another 2 months from now I should be able to open. And then it's been 8 months. So needed to have that job, and I got it. I got it in friends from local brewing companies that allowed me to do work for them. I was delivering beer, which is a wonderful thing to do, especially when you have a reduced income and need beer still in your life.
And you're bringing happiness to others, right? So, I mean,
Absolutely.
nobody's sad to see the beer delivery guy. It's like the pizza guy. I mean, you're excited because you're about to eat or drink whatever the excitement showing up is.
Yep, we had a lot of I had a lot of smiles at the doors. It was great.
I bet.
So that was personal. On an emotional level, it's probably the only time in my business life from being 26 years old where I questioned whether it was the right thing to do to go into business. It's the only time I've had to explain myself as being an entrepreneur to myself or to anybody else. I've got a partner, and I had to explain my reasonings for every business decision because we live together and we share a life together, and I'd never had to do that before, and it was challenging to be put in a situation where you're trying to be confident, but you have nothing to give you confidence other than your past knowledge and history of your successes. So
yeah, and the hope that things return to some sort of normal, right? Because I mean, every time you think things are getting better, they get worse, and then you think, oh no, okay, how long can I tread water for until this becomes a real problem?
Exactly.
So, Brad, for Brew Donkey, January, February 2020, bring us back to that, and how were things going, and how did that big announcement on the sort of middle of March hit you?
Yeah, so good interlude. The way that Brew Donkey kind of traveled through this pandemic. Starting in January, February, March, we're doing great numbers. All of our Christmas tickets and purchases were being, taken. People would purchase tickets for Christmas for anybody, and that would happen in January and February. And March was clipping along. We were getting good amounts of ticket guests on trips. And just like everybody else, the first week of March, we were looking at how we could operate in a way that was safer. I was personally feeling like, because we were a bus company and the public generally were still being told to take public transportation, that we didn't need to shut down. So we didn't shut down early, even though there was some emotional pressure to do so. We did some sanitizing and no mask wearing because it wasn't mandated or even thought of at that point. But we sanitized a lot. And then I went out on the last tour on the Sunday before shutdown because I just didn't feel comfortable sending my staff out alone in case any issues arose. And I was on that tour when the city announced that we were going into a state of emergency. And at that point, I was talking to my staff about it. The people behind me in the seat heard about it, and a woman reached over my shoulder and put her hand on my shoulder, and I was instantly a little taken aback. I'm like, we're not supposed to touch. But she said, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. This is going to be rough. Take care. And that was the last time somebody touched me other than my partner, a hug or anything for 18 months or so, maybe closer to 12. But that day, went home after the tour, started the emails, started the calls. The execution of a closure, to summarize it quickly, is hard. You're emailing all the partners that you have for business, and I say that as in our destination partners, our restaurant partners, our bus partners. I'm emailing customers, I'm emailing staff, and I got on the phone with, I'd say, 100% of the clients that we had for private bookings, which are larger groups, and we had 95% of the people that day that told us keep your money, which was really enlightening, and it really gave me a lot of spirit, and I cried quite a bit because I was seeing the potential for our business to be gutted. Then emailing everybody, all the clients, drafting that email we did the next couple of days, and sent it out to everybody, letting them know that their ticket money was safe, but if you needed a refund, we'd give it to you. And we got good response from that too. Then essentially went into a mode of, I'm busy, man, I need to do something. So I put myself in the mode of trying to figure out what I could do for the breweries. So we put together a list of breweries that were doing home delivery. We published it on our website so that when people were coming to our website looking for whatever they would have been looking for before, they would find a list of the breweries and how they could get beer to their door. And we told all the breweries to update us on when they would start deliveries. And that was kind of the first step. Then went into more creative avenues, and we did virtual Instagram live interviews with the breweries where our Instagram live feed would show an interview with another brewery or not another brewery, but a brewery. And we ended up doing about 40 of those throughout most of April and May.
Actually, do you have the link for that, Brad? Would you mind telling us what the link is so some of our listeners could check it out?
Those virtual interviews are still living in our Instagram, which you can find us under Brew Donkey OTT. We've compiled as many of them as we remember to record, because there's no easy way to record an Instagram live. It's meant to be forgotten. And they live in our kind of Instagram TV area. So not a reel, but an Instagram TV section. So you can find.
That's a fantastic opportunity to get more engagement from some of your stakeholders who they had to close their doors as well.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these resources, I'm sure, can be reused in the future to talk about, some of the products they have and what their offerings are in order to help them grow.
Yeah, we definitely had moments where I had to rein back the tried to rein back the conversation about the pandemic, because I wanted to be able to use this content in the future, but had a lot of good conversations. It was hard to not talk about it because it was affecting everybody. The breweries themselves, though, they survived pretty well. As soon as people figured out that you were stuck home and you're working from home, and all of the social norms about how many days a week you should drink went out the window. A lot of breweries made a lot of deliveries, and people bought a lot more alcohol, so they did okay. And they're really kind to us. Like I said, some breweries put me to work and kept me on the road. So yeah, that was kind of the first shutdown. We then got ourselves to June. We did a micro opening where we tried to operate in July and August and September. And to summarize that, it was anxious and not comfortable. We were picking people up at homes, unbeknownst to us, where they weren't following pandemic restrictions. So we shut it down. We shut it down in the first day, a couple of days of October. We did it at our timing because I knew what we had to do, since we'd already done it once, executed, and 3 days later, the province went into shutdown too. So I didn't have to spend those days scrambling like I did in March.
Talking about, all those Instagram videos or posts you did, that could be a form of how you have been able to help other people adapt. Mm-hmm. Shine light on some of the microbreweries around the city or even outside of the city. Your reach is global, as we all know. How have you thought this could be turned into a positive? Like, let's look a few months down the road, or even 6 months or a year from now. What are you most excited about?
Well, I'm excited about the idea that many breweries have pivoted themselves away from this only giving access to their customers through the specific channels that they've always had. Beer store, LCBO, kegs at bars and restaurants, and buy it from their door. They went to shipping province-wide. They went to bringing it to people's doors. This is what's going to make the craft beer industry more sustainable. And I, as a business person, don't want to be in an industry as a peripheral that isn't sustainable. So it's great to see that businesses that might have had very little traction have gained more traction. And so they'll be more stable going forward.
I have to admit, sorry, Jared. I was just going to say, I have to admit, I was pretty impressed with the government in turning those regulations around, because usually those things take forever. And they were pretty quick to allow those sorts of sales to change so that these companies could exist. Because if they blocked that, I can only imagine how they would have fared through all of this, because it would have been awful having to just go through their normal channels, which have disappeared because they can no longer sell at bars, restaurants, or any of those sorts of things.
Yeah, and they even helped peripheral companies to be better suited to help breweries for retail. They opened a bar and restaurant offsite sales program, which helped the breweries because they could then sell cans to leave the restaurant when you couldn't consume it in the restaurant. They actually made it so that beer delivery services, which began to pop up, liquor delivery licenses, could hold on to stock, because prior to the law change or the regulation change, as a delivery service, which, sidebar here, we opened as a delivery service and tour company and closed it in 2016. The delivery services had to literally pick up the beer the day it was supposed to be delivered. So Sean, if you wanted some Beyond the Pale delivered this Thursday, I would drive to be on the Pale on Thursday morning when they opened, whatever time that is, pick up your beer. But if you also wanted beer from Castle Brewery, I would be out in Castleman on the same day as well. Essentially, I was just your driver picking up beer for you instead of a company that could hold alcohol to then distribute it. So they've changed a lot of rules, and I was impressed as well by the ability for the provincial and municipal government to make changes that will hopefully be beneficial to the industry. For us, though, we definitely kind of had to sit by and wait because there wasn't enough. We're tourism, and as tourism, we're one of the most highly affected sectors. We were lucky to contract everything. We got rid of our retail space that we were in inside Maker House in September of last year. We contracted as much of our fees as we could. Most of our staff had full-time jobs, so they were, comfortably laid off. And really, it was just myself that I needed to take care of. So one of the things I did, which is probably an upcoming question, is kind of pivoting my focus to something that I thought would be beneficial. And we started doing virtual experiences that weren't on Instagram Live. We were doing them in a platform that mimicked the craft beer experience, which was a pub environment. Kudos to everybody who's creating these events on Zoom and Google Meet, but none of our tours have ever been a single audio channel of communication where one person talks and everybody listens. It's always been dialogue between people, and the conversation needed to continue that way. So we put our effort and our eggs in a basket of a platform called Remo, and that we did, I'd say, enough to keep me busy, but it never was enough to be something that I would do for the rest of my life.
I have to say, Brad, that I attended one of your events, or maybe two, and it was so nice to actually meet people in small breakout rooms, and you're drinking your beer and you're talking about the beer and your experiences. It's like you're in a pub setting. Mm-hmm. And I got so drunk at one point, but I don't feel like I'm drinking on alone because there's dozens of other people on the call.
And there was definitely a part of me that was really excited about putting this platform together because I was a very social person. And I went from being able to go out 2 or 3 times, 4 times, maybe 5 times a week in life and socialize with people, network, and tell people about my business. And that all went away. So then anytime I was enjoying a beverage, I was sitting at home alone. And that becomes dark very quickly. So this platform was something that I was using to, help me be social while I did it, to whatever success it was. It's benefited. It kept me busy, and we still love the platform, and we have it. We're kind of not spending much time on it because at this point we're planning for reopen, and the pivot itself though kept me occupied and busy. So the success I found out of that pivot was keeping my brain working. Logistics and operations and business operations have always been what have got me excited and kept me from becoming depressed. And that's what that did for me. The success wasn't financial because it didn't make any money for us, but it was on a personal level. It kept me busy.
Yeah, talking about pivoting with the name of our podcast, mm-hmm. I've mentioned on a few other episodes that I totally relate, as you're in the tourism industry, as a musician and an event planner, in-person event planner, we felt the heat better than anybody. And mm-hmm. I came across the platform eSAX virtual events, and that's been my entire pivot, Brad. Mm-hmm. Never been busier. So let's talk about the organization, Brad. Where do you think Brew Donkey is going to land in a year from now? What are you going to be doing differently?
Well, our hope is to take advantage of some of the funds that they have for business reopening and try to become more tourism ready internationally. We currently service locals only, primarily. We operate Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And unless you're a tourist in our city on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Brew Donkey doesn't make sense for your experience. So we're hoping to turn it into a 7-day-a-week operation, but grow that with some of the tourism reopening money that they have there. That would probably start in the beginning of next year, but with all tourism things, the planning cycle you're planning a trip maybe for 2022 right now, but the company that wants your money for 2022 started planning that in 2020. So for us to begin operating in the tourism market internationally, we're going to plan now for probably 2023 or 2024. So it'll be a long haul, but until then, we're going to continue adding good experiences with great local partners. We just partnered with Saunders Farm. Saunders Farm, their Fright Fest, we did it 2 years ago. Amazing experience. We get the RIP pass, which is VIP. You go right to the front of the line, no waiting behind anybody. And
RIP pass. That's very cute.
Yeah, that's theirs, not me. Not mine. I can't claim. I like puns, but their pun game is strong. Although now that they have a cider house, because Saunders Farm purchased a cider house and now has an operating cidery, I think they should have an event called the Cider House Ghouls, because I like my puns. And so we're going to be doing tours there in September and October, bringing people right to the actual event and getting them to the front of the line for the actual haunted outdoor experiences this year. We're also doing partnership with the Red Blacks. We've got tickets for numerous games this year, and we hope to continue that partnership as the relationship kind of progresses with OSEG.
I think there must be so much pent-up demand for anything social right now. So I think hopefully you're positioned very, very well for the sort of other end of this as people jump back into it. And it sounds like some of those programs are really interesting, and partnering with some great groups like Saunders Farms and the Red Blacks, I think adds so much more to the experience as well, right?
Yeah, we've always, well, I won't say always, but in 2015, 3 or 4 years after we started, we made it a conscious effort to not make people make a decision between us and something else fun they wanted to do. If there was somebody who said, you know what, I've always wanted to go axe throwing and I wanted to do a Brew Donkey tour, why do I have to choose? So we just put them together so you can do Brew Donkey with axe throwing and make that decision. We have to, put a limit on those kind of things though. And I say that because, I want to go-karting. And I'm going go-karting at the end of this month with a friend for a friend's 40th, but we're never going to put Brew Donkey and go-karting together because that's just not going to happen. But really, bungee jumping.
All right, what could go wrong?
Well, we're not going to do bungee jumping either, but that's, we've got these great partnerships with other destinations in the city where we can help bring them guests in their capacity needs. They can help promote what we do, and we reach a group of people that we wouldn't have reached before. We did the Red Bull Crashed Ice event where we did 2 breweries and then we went to the Red Bull Crashed Ice event. Well, the people that were coming on that tour had no idea we existed. They'd found us because we were offering a tour that brought them to the Red Bull Crashed Ice. And now they're probably good long-term customers because they found us through something they were interested in. So
it's a really good opportunity, Brad, for our viewers or listeners to say that the collaboration with other communities, other businesses will grow all of us. The old saying that, the tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
This is a great opportunity for that. So thank you. That's fabulous.
Well, I've always enjoyed working with other people that have creative experiences because, they're doing something right. And if we can all do something right together, you're growing the pie, not the slice.
It's a good one. So let's talk about words of wisdom, Brad. Like we talked about the collaboration, working with your partners or even others who you think would be, positive to help the community. Anything else you'd like to share with our viewers?
Well, if you are considering going into business, one piece of advice that I've given to every person, if you're doing it bootstrapped, a bootstrapped mentality, don't quit your job before you get a really good line of credit. Because as soon as you quit your job, you are no longer viewed as an individual that would be due any kind of credit. So get a line of credit while you have that full-time job and get as much as you can, because that'll be a much better financial way for you to float your business when you need that extra money, because you will be bootstrapping it if you're doing if you're in need of extra money, it's either going to come from a credit card or it's going to come from that line of credit. So that's the only like very important piece of advice that I got right before I started. And the other one would be to, even though being self-employed means you are constantly being told what you should do by other people, because they always know they have great ideas for how you should run your business.
But they probably aren't a business owner themselves.
They aren't business owners. It's really hard to not to do this, but you have to listen. And sometimes really great ideas come out of the people that think they know how to run your business for you. And it's really hard to listen, but because you want to tell them, I got this, I'm in business. But the truth is there's really good information that's come from them. And we've had some really wonderful nuggets that have come out of there. And, I'll happily admit our best-selling tour was an idea from somebody that said, I actually just want to go to 5 breweries and not really listen to anybody talk. I just want to try their beers. And that was our Rito Rally tour. Yeah.
What about the community, Brad? How can they help Brew Donkey? Let's say somebody's watching and listening to this thing. I could help in some way, shape, or form. What would be your ask?
The ask is, how they can help us is obviously telling people. If they've been on a tour, if you're listening to this and you've been on a tour, whether you can attend or not, head to our Facebook or our Instagram and comment on some of our posts, share our posts, share it with friends. Literally take a link from our website and send it to somebody else in a Facebook message. We get a lot of traffic through the internet. We're not expecting people to come to our location at 150 Elgin on the 10th floor come September. We're going to run our business from there, and our storefront is our website. So sharing our website is bringing people to our store. And yeah, send us emails. We're trying to put ourselves out there on Reddit a lot, even though it's scary. So we're going to probably do some AMAs in there and have the community join us, whether it be on the Reddit or the Reddit. Oh, I sound so old. Join us on Reddit or just send us emails telling us, anything that they're thinking that we should do. We're going to continue operating, so attending tours is really great as well.
Well, thank you, Brad. What is your website, please, and your email?
So brewdonkey.ca is how you can find us, brewdonkey.ca, and to email us, hello@brewdonkey.ca, and those emails come directly to me, and I respond pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Well, it's so great to hear that you're sort of preparing for what can hopefully be a great recovery and a wonderful future for Brew Donkey. I'm excited to hear as the things progress with the tourism industry and the international tourism. I think that's a really, really good angle. And I think hopefully a lot of people are going to be coming to visit us soon when it's safe.
Well, thank you for that, Sean. And I look forward to sharing a beer with you in September, face-to-face from 6 feet apart.
Yeah, sounds good.
Just out of curiosity, what is your beer style of choice, so I can make sure to bring a few in that you'll enjoy?
Oh, good question. Good question. In terms of local breweries, I'm very tied to Broadhead.
Okay.
And I would literally drink anything they make, but honestly, they're all amazing. So it's hard to pick now.
Wonderful. And Jared, you're going to have to swing by and visit.
I think we'll have to make that a trip. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Before we head out, Brad, 2 things. One is, I was just thinking in the back of my mind, I love little, nuances for names. You were talking about Saunders Farms. How about something like the Cider Slaughterhouse?
The Cider Slaughterhouse is good.
Yeah.
The trip, for those that are interested, the trip that we have that is with Saunders Farms is called All About the Booze, BOO''Z.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I love it. They're doing great marketing there. So thank you so much, Brad. So today, folks, we were joined by Brad Campeau from Brew Donkey, and on the Pivoted Success podcast, co-hosted by our friend Sean Cochran from TCC Canada, and myself, Jared Goldsmith from eSAX Virtual Events. Stay safe, everybody, and we'll catch you on a Brew Donkey tour soon. Thank you.
Thanks very much.